You didn't have a victim to help you. You became the advocate for that victim. You stepped in that victim's shoes and you did what you could to bring justice to that victim. And you think about every other crime, you have a victim. You have a live victim and give you a description, tell you what happened, the whole nine. You didn't have that in homicide. You had to figure that all out for yourself. And to me, that's what was so intriguing.
Yeah. How many hours were you working? I mean, is it all consuming?
It's semi-consuming, yes, it is. I mean, you would go, our shifts were 8 hours, obviously. But if you caught a case in a shift, you worked that case until you ran out of hot leads. There was one case I can remember that we worked, I think we worked like 26 hours straight, tracking down leads. And it got to the point where you're just drinking coffee just to maintain your senses. But what they say about the first 24, first 48 hours is absolutely true. That's where you make or break your case.
Why is that?
Because that's when the leads are hot. That's when if you have witnesses, they had their best memory. That's where you're going to get information from neighbors who may have seen or heard something where later on they'll forget or they'll decide, oh, well, that happened 3 weeks ago. I don't want to get involved in that. That's where all your hot evidence is. And you have to process that evidence and track those leads until you run out of them. And then you just work it as a normal case.
How is it being a homicide detective for New Orleans? I've talked with guys in LA, and sometimes when you're working in, predominantly black neighborhoods, they don't really trust the police and they don't want to really talk. How is it down here? Is everybody pretty cooperative?
No.
Okay.
And I found it got worse as my career progressed. We were able to get witness when I first started in homicide and when I was a district detective, because my district was probably, fifth district was probably, I'd say 88% black, 86% black. But you still there's a lot of decent people in these neighborhoods. I mean, you'll go and people say, oh, that's a depressed neighborhood and that's a dangerous place. You don't want to go there. There's a lot of decent people that still live down there. And they're the victims. That's black on black crime. They're the victims.
Yeah. So what is it? I mean, I would think if somebody is coming in to try and solve a crime,
Mm-hmm.
you'd want to cooperate.
Mm-hmm.
What is the issue?
It's two issues. One, which is the lesser issue, is the racial harmony. They just don't want to break that racial thing that we're not gonna snitch on a black guy, even if he came and took everything out of my house and stole my car. You saw that, but you saw it rarely. The other issue, the bigger issue, is fear. Because if you were designated a rat or an informant in the neighborhood, and you didn't have to be a police informant, all you had to be was a victim who was had the house burglarized or their car stolen or whatever, and they were cooperating with the investigators to solve that case. Well, all of a sudden you were a rat and you were a problem. And there were a number of instances where there was retaliation. Those people were more afraid of retaliation than they figured it was just whatever was stolen or whoever was hurt. If they didn't die, they'd heal and it would all be over. So the biggest obstacle that we encountered was the fear factor.
Did you have a specialty as a homicide detective? Did you like to do one thing, like evidence collection or interrogation? What was your specialty?
You really don't specialize. What I will say is at the time I was in homicide, not only were we responsible for we were responsible for all death investigations, suicides, accidental deaths, all of them. We were also responsible for police shootings. We handled police shootings. So it was a diverse thing that you handled. It wasn't just homicides. You handled, serious shootings that could possibly turn into a homicide, uh, accidental deaths, unclassified deaths, suicides, and then the police shooting. So we kept busy with that. But no, there was no real specialty.
How did you deal with the victims' families? Was that a tough thing? Was that
Yes,
challenging?
it was challenging, and you had to do it. You had to do it with some compassion. You had to press them for the information that you needed from them, but you had to do it with compassion, and that was a balancing act. It really was.
How old were you when you got to homicide?
26.
26. So you got a little bit of experience there. Was there anything that you felt like you got better at, needed to learn once you got to homicide as
Interrogation.
interrogation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That is a talent. Some people just have it, and some people have to develop it.
Okay.
And I was one that had to develop it.
As a homicide detective for New Orleans, do you guys get sent to, like, for example, the Reed interview technique? Do you
Hmm.
do you go to
Oh yeah.
do they just send you to everything they possibly can?
Anything they could possibly send us to,
Okay.
yes, yes. And I had a couple of seminars or schools on custodial interrogation, uh, laws, updates on laws, uh, homicide techniques, how you handle things, forensics, what you're looking at on a scene, what you may glean from a body that tells you, how the incident happened or occurred. So yeah, there were a number of schools that I had on my resume, and I enjoyed every one of them.
Hmm. How do you end up dealing with the bodies?
You know, I hate to say this because I'm gonna sound like a wimp, but when I was a kid, if I saw a dead dog in the street, it affected me. And I thought about that when I went up there. Man, how am I going to deal with this?
Mhm.
And believe it or not, my future brother-in-law, who was up there at the time, uh, actually, I was a cadet. I wasn't even up there then. I was a cadet when this happened. And he was up there and he handled the case and had to go to the autopsy. That was one of the things you did. You handled the scene and then you had to go to the autopsy. So he come over and he said, "Man, you want to go to autopsy?" Yeah. As I'm walking over there, I'm getting nervous. What am I going to see? How am I going to handle this? To my surprise, when I get in there and I saw what was going on and what it meant, it was fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And that's how I viewed it. I mean, you had to get used to some things, the odors and things like that. But for the most part, it was just fascinating to watch.